the people who made recommendations, and I actually don't know who was asked, but the people who made recommendations, 10 men made recommendations about what to do for the Jewish future, and 3 women made recommendations about what to do for the Jewish future. So 77% of the voices, close to 80% of the voices that we're hearing are men's voices about what the future should look like. And we've actually been hearing men's voices for a long time, sometimes in the numbers of 100%. So that's who gave their ideas. And then I would actually say, in this booklet, there's also recommendations of books to read. And I want to point out that there was, 1 woman was asked, or 1 woman responded, and 3 men told us what to read. And the only person who told us a book to read by a woman was Rabbi Sarah Horowitz, who recommended a book by Blue Greenberg. So she recommended 1 book by a woman. So out of her 4 recommendations, or out of her 3 recommendations, so 33% of her recommendations were by women. The men who wrote did not recommend 1 book. So there were 14 books, not 1 book by a woman. And I passionately believe if we only hear the voices of men in the Jewish community, we are going to end up with the same Jewish community again and again and again. I can see the glass half full. It's not bad. We are here 5,000 years later. But I also think that we do actually have lots of moments of despair. And I am concerned. When I see the glass half empty, I think like, oh my God, we are, you know, the glass is more than half empty. And if we need some ways to really create more radical change in the Jewish community. So I actually took the $100 million very seriously. What would I do with $100 million? I am going to be a little bit self-serving. I chair Moving Traditions, which is interested in gender in the Jewish community. And we have a program called Rosh Chodesh, It's a Girl Thing, which tries to deal with the issue of girls, and in this particular case, girls dropping out of the Jewish community after bat mitzvah. You know, there's a huge drop-off rate after bat mitzvah. And what we try to do is we use Judaism to foster conversations that girls are interested in, things that they care about, to strengthen their self-esteem, and to keep them engaged in the Jewish community and help them find that Judaism speaks to them. The same way that you've probably all been to Limud sessions these past weekend where Judaism spoke to you. And very often we don't provide that same kind of engagement for adolescent girls. So we actually now have 300 groups, Rosh Chodesh groups around the country for adolescent girls at 190 institutions. I want to invest in those 190 institutions so that they all have 3 groups for girls. And next year we're going to be releasing groups for boys, for adolescent boys, for groups for them after bar mitzvah. So actually there would be 4 groups per institution at each of our 190 institutions. And I also, right now the average person who leads our group gets paid about $2,000 a year to lead a group. And I want to deal directly with that Jewish educators are poorly paid, and I want to raise their salary to $3,500 and increase them at 5% a year. And I want to increase the number of groups that we have at 20% a year. So that in the next 5 years, we really actually have to spend almost $25 million to make these groups grow. But I think the only way that you really have change, one of the problems I think in the Jewish community, not only having to do with gender, but always, is that there's the new idea. Every 3 years we need a new idea, and I want to actually make sure that for 5 years Rosh Chodesh groups are growing and running, and that that girls expect to join a Rosh Chodesh group after bat mitzvah, and are yet unnamed boys groups. Boys expect to join these boys groups after their bar mitzvah, and that your kids will ask, why didn't you join a bat mitzvah? Why weren't you in a Rosh Chodesh group after your bat mitzvah? Because they didn't realize that that didn't exist, and the boys expect that. And so I want to make that kind of change, and I think that only when you get kids when they're still engaged will we actually see raising the issues of Judaism, gender for kids, will we actually start to create that kind of change. Okay, that's my first $25 million. Then I want to look at the Siddur. The way the Koran Siddur has actually made a big difference to the Orthodox Jewish community with gender in the Jewish community. I think we need a more gender-sensitive Siddur. The Open Siddur Project, I think, has some of the possibilities of that, but I learned early on, like 20 years ago, it's very easy to produce great materials. The problem in the Jewish community is distributing them. So I need $1 million to produce and distribute this. So if people use a Siddur that raises issues about God language, about gender, about imahud, because when people if people are going to Shul and Shabbat, they're seeing that. I think that some of the women's Talmud and Torah work needs to be distributed as well. And the way that PJ Library has been so successful in getting books, Jewish books out there for young children, I wanted to get Jewish women's writings on the list of must-reads through various marketing means, school curricula, libraries, awards, so that nobody would even think of producing a list like the list that we had today, that men and women would be ashamed of themselves to produce that list, and that they would actually have been exposed much more to writings by women. I mean, I know we actually as a community have a problem. The Torah and much of our original writings were written by men, but we need to actually, when we're talking, there's modern books on this list, and when we're putting out those modern lists, we need to have women's words on them. And then the final, in the United States, the final $20 million, I'm going to echo what Nina Bruder does have in your booklet, is I want to pay women leaders on an equal par with men, create parental leave in Jewish organizations, and train young women leaders. I don't think that we can actually have women be leaders in our organizations if they are not paid like men are. They know they can go out into the non-Jewish world and make the same salaries as men in certain places. And you know, in the academy, many of the Ivy League schools, many of the top educational institutions have women at the helm, and as you probably know, 19 of the largest federations do not have women at the helm. So, you know, if you are very, very talented women and want to run a big institution, you don't really need to stay in, you don't need to stay in the Jewish community. Go run, you know, Princeton, don't stay and run New York Federation, right? So I think that we need to figure out how to get women to be paid the same way men are. I actually still really care about Israel. And I think that, I don't know where to fall in that conversation, but I think that Israel, I want to give half the money to Israel, but I think Israel needs radical change because I don't think, I think the glass is 95% empty, and I am very, very worried about Israel today. I think that our grandchildren will ask about Rosh Chodesh groups, and I'm not sure what they're going to ask about Israel. And so I want to bring radical change to what's going on in the Israeli scene. I would give $35 million to the Center for Jewish Arab Economic Development to develop Arab women's businesses. We all know from global development that investing in women, poor women, is the way to create change, and this is an organization that works very effectively with Israeli Arab businesswomen, and I want our women starting businesses, and I want to impact them, and I take the other $15 million and invest in Israeli, Arab, Palestinian, and Jewish women who are interested in politics and try to get them to spend a lot of time talking about politics, because I actually think that the men in charge have done a lousy job over the last 61 years, and I'm very concerned. And I don't know whether women are going to be able to do, I actually know women who do some of this work now, and it's very, very, very hard. And lots of the women are still influenced by the men and the parties and the politics that they're involved in. But hopefully $15 million would make a beginning of some of that change, and we need some radical change, because in that case, I'm sure 60 more years of this is not going to lead to a vision that I think will make us all happy.